Well, since you ask me for a ghost story, I did once hear of a peculiar occurrence, the narration of which may divert you. It began when I dropped in on my club one night. It was the evening of the annual club game of Hey-Ho Rumbelow, in which we line up 6 of the shortest members of the club and attempt to knock them down with the fattest member. All without waking the sleepiest member. It is my job on these occasions, as the club's most boring member, to sit in a side room by myself and not talk to anyone. For every 15 minutes I successfully do this, I am rewarded with a try, although curiously tries play no other part in the scoring system. I had just scored my 5th try when I was joined by a losing sportsman from the game next door. He was a tall, lean man with salt and pepper hair and a sandy moustache. I should explain that the forfeits in Hey-Ho Rumbelow are predominantly powdery in nature. I cannot remember how we got onto the subject of the otherworldly and supernatural. It may be because that's what I always bang on about, or it may not. Are you yourself a believer? I asked him, and he shook his head emphatically. But when we had both finished coughing, I noticed he seemed suddenly unsure.
Mind you,
He said,
there was one peculiar thing for which I could never find a rational explanation.
Intrigued, I urged him to tell his story, and pausing only to comb the icing sugar from his mutton chops, he began.
Well, I was leaving this very club not 2 weeks ago, but 4 years ago. It was a cold night, and I reached into my jacket pocket. I tell you this partly because it is germane to my story, and partly because I like saying jacket pocket. Jacket pocket. Jacket pocket. It was my tobacco pouch, I thought, but instead I found a letter. But a letter I had not put there myself, and indeed had never seen before. Was it an epistle from the other world? Had it been placed there by a time-traveling future version of myself? Had I picked up the wrong jacket? Whatever the explanation, the letter made curious reading. Here is how it went.
My dear uncle, my cycling tour continues tolerably well. The weather is unusually hot for February, but then of course it is July. I have taken lodgings for a few days at a quaint inn by the name of the Horse and the Other Horses, where I intend to do a little angling, a little reading, and a little smack. My landlady is a jolly old countrywoman whose cheery smile proclaim her a worthy hostess and whose flowery forearms proclaim her a but indifferent player of Hey-Ho Rumbelow. One evening, we got to talking, and she told me a story more terrifying and inexplicable than any I have heard. But you shall be the judge, uncle, for I shall set it down in her own words as best I can.
Well, sir, this was the way of it. 'Twas a dark December night, and I was busy in the pantry, panting. Well, all of a sudden, I hears a most terrible banging at the side door, and in bursts old Wilf. Now, everyone knew old Wilf. He was the local ne'er-do-well, poacher and murderer. But he never meant anyone any harm 2/3 of the time. And now the poor soul was white as a sheet. I poured him a brandy and helped him to a chair. He drained the glass in one, but still he could not speak. I poured him another brandy and helped him to another chair. Still he could say nothing. I'd run out of brandy by this time, but I helped him to 3 or 4 more chairs. And when at last his head was bumping up against the ceiling, he managed to tell his story. And a more blood-curdling tale of terror I hopes I shall never live to hear the like. This is what he said.
I went for a walk and I saw a ghost.
That's all he said, sir. And all he ever would say so long as he lived. That he went for a walk and saw a ghost.
And so concluded the woman's tale. And for my part, a most remarkable one I find it, involving as it does a man who went for a walk and saw a ghost. Your affectionate nephew, Cyril.
And that was the end of the letter. I put it back in my jacket pocket. Jacket pocket. Jacket pocket. And never thought of it till now, when you, sir, reminded me of the curious tale of the man who went for a walk and saw a ghost.
Said my new friend. So there you have it. be you devout believer or no less devout skeptic, from henceforth you must find some accommodation in your convictions for the fact that you once met a man who found a letter from a man who stayed with a woman who knew a man who went for a walk and saw a ghost. Although, there is a sequel to this tale. In point of fact, I saw the same man again the next night.
Ah, I'm glad to catch you.
He said.
I looked at that letter again, you know, when I got home. There was a P.S. I'd never noticed before. It read,
P.S. As I was on my way to post this, my landlady stopped me in the hall and said,
Oh, sir, my husband says I got that story I told you last night wrong. According to him, old Wolf said...
I went for a walk and I saw a goat.
He said, sorry about that, sir, he saw a goat.
She said, sorry about that, uncle, he saw a goat.
it read, sorry about that, old man. He saw a goat.
He said. So they were. Never think that we are alone, ladies and gentlemen, for tonight you have heard proof positive that this world of ours is also walked by goats.